Hello everyone, welcome to another Quad Education Test Prep Fundamentals video. My name is Tom, and today we're going to be talking about a topic from the SAT that isn't very much fun. It's one of those things that everybody knows that they're going to have to do on the SAT and nobody likes it. It occurs early on in the test, and depending on how you approach it, you could be setting yourself up for failure or for success in the rest of the test. So a very important thing to do the right way. That topic is the Old Passage, known officially as the historical passage in the SAT reading section. So let's take a look. Okay, let's talk Old Passage. The Old Passage, as defined by me, is the one out of the 5 reading passages that is roughly more than 100 years old, but it's also not the first passage. The first passage is always a short story, and these days those stories are never really that unreadable, or at least not so much to qualify as an old passage, in my opinion. You can tell how old the passage is by reading the published date, which always appears in the blurb that comes before the passage. Incidentally, all passages have a blurb at the beginning, and it's always a good idea to read that blurb. Often there's some really useful context in there, and with the old passage, that useful context is the age of the passage you're reading. But I digress. When you read that blurb for the first time and identify the old passage, there's one thing you should always do first, and that thing is skip it. Best case scenario, the old passage is annoying, but often it's either extremely convoluted or entirely incomprehensible. With that in mind, and with general good pacing practices in mind as well, you should know not to get stuck on these miserable questions. This is what I mean when I say the old passage could make or break your entire test. If you run headfirst into this passage and just start trying to get it done, it may take you 15 or even 20 minutes to get through. Now, not only have you put yourself in a pretty bad position to get the other reading passages done in the time allotted, but you've also probably just overexerted yourself very early on in the test. If you think about the SAT as a 3-mile run and the reading test is the first mile, you going all out in that old passage is like deciding to break into a dead sprint for 100 meters just in the middle of that first mile. It doesn't make a ton of sense, does it? And that is why you should skip the old passage the first time you see it. And when you do come back to it, do your best, but don't do too much. Also, as you're working through the passage itself, try your best to translate whatever old-sounding speech you're reading is into current English. For example, this sentence I have here, the proper sphere for all human beings is the largest and highest which they are able to attain to. What this is cannot be ascertained without complete liberty of choice. And in everyday speech, really what that's just saying is people should be in a place where they are operating at the highest level possible, and they can't do that unless they're free, which is much more intelligible and able to be understood by us today. The thing to remember is that these passages were written by real people, just like you and me, and though these people wrote it a long time ago, they still had a reasonable and understandable message to communicate. The issue is they wrote it a century ago when people spoke very differently than they do today, and so there's some translating from Old English to New English that needs to be done before it can be understood by modern readers. So let's do some examples of that and see what that looks like in context. Okay, here we have 2 example excerpts. What we'll do is these individually because it looks like this is a lot too much text to read at the same time. So let's go into the first one first. The task here is summarize the following paragraphs in 1 sentence each, so no more than 1 sentence. Take a second to read this and see what you can do. Okay, very quickly, I'm going to read through this mess, and we'll see what we can get out of as far as meaning goes. We are told that it is not within the province of women to discuss the subject of slavery, that it is a political question, and we are stepping out of our sphere when we take part in its discussion. It is not true that it is merely a political question. It is likewise a question of justice, of humanity, of morality, of religion, a question which, while it involves considerations of immense importance to the welfare and prosperity of our country, enters deeply into the home concerns, the everyday feelings of millions of our fellow beings. Whether the laborer shall receive the reward of his labor or be driven daily to unrequited toil, whether he shall walk erect in the dignity of conscious manhood or be reckoned among the beasts which perish, whether his bones and sinews shall be his own or another's, whether his child shall receive the protection of its natural guardian, or be ranked among livestock of the estate, to be disposed of as the caprice or interest of the master may dictate, these considerations are all involved in the question of slavery. Then if we think about that in just 1 sentence, basically it's saying that everybody should think about slavery and that it is a very important question, and not much more than that. And that's what I mean when I say translate into everyday speech. This is a lot of words, and it's very strong emotional language, and rightly so. But for the purposes of doing the test, we need to have a very succinct and specific idea of what we can do with the paragraph. So here, just slavery is an important question, one that we should all think about, and one which has a lot of ramifications, is enough to summarize this paragraph. Okay, let's do one more. Okay, take a moment to read through this and summarize to one sentence. All right, I'm going to read this one as well. Let every American, every lover of liberty, every well-wisher to his prosperity swear by the blood of the Revolution never to violate in the least particular the laws of the country, and never to tolerate their violation by others. As the patriots of '76 did to support the Declaration of Independence, so to the support of the Constitution and laws, let every American pledge his life, his property, and his sacred honor. Let every man remember that to violate the law is to trample on the blood of his father and to tear the character of his own and his children's liberty. Let reverence for laws be breathed by every American mother. To the lisping babe that prattles on her lap, let it be taught in schools, in seminaries, and colleges. Let it be written in primers, spelling books, and in almanacs. Let it be preached from the pulpit, proclaimed in legislative halls, and enforced in courts of justice. And, in short, let it become the political religion of the nation. And let the old and the young, the rich and the poor, the grave and the gay, of all sexes and tongues and colors and conditions, sacrifice unceasingly upon its altars. So that, by the way, is Abraham Lincoln there, and we can summarize all of that to basically say the law is important in America, and no matter what, you should follow the law because it's very important. And hopefully this is a really good illustration of condensing this language and tuning out the rhetorical flourish that these authors sometimes have. This sort of compression of meaning to the law is important, don't break it, is a great way to get past a lot of the haze associated with doing these old passages. All right, that's it for this video. Remember, always read the blurb before you dive into a reading passage in the SAT. And if you see that it's the old passage, save it for the end. When you do come around to that passage, try to translate each line into modern, intelligible English so that you can get an idea of what's actually going on in the passage. If you found this material useful, we hope that you will like, share, and subscribe to Quad Education. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have a great day.